Hey guys, this is Austin. With over 40 years of console hits and misses, here are the weirdest. Coming in at number 5 is the Nintendo Wii Mini. Making cheaper versions of consoles late in the life cycle has been going on for a while, but Nintendo really went over the top with the Wii Mini. It comes in a red and black finish, which doesn't look too bad, but it's about as stripped down as it gets. Want to play online? No Wi-Fi. How about GameCube games? Not happening. Take one look at the menu and you'll see just how basic things are. This is made to play games and that's it. You do get the newer Motion Plus controller included in red, so games like Wii Sports work totally fine, but even here we're limited to 480i as there's no component video out. The list goes on and on too, like the lack of an SD card slot and a top loading disc versus the original slot loading drive. To be fair, there is still a solid library of games, but the Mini is missing out on a lot compared to the standard Wii. This wouldn't be crazy on an older console, but the Wii Mini was released in 2013 here in the US. This definitely gets weird points all around. For number 4, there's the Sega Nomad. Unlike the Wii Mini, which was generally kind of terrible, the Nomad had one big selling point. It's a full portable version of the Genesis. It is an absolutely massive handheld, but it has the full internals of the Genesis. Pop in a game and you're basically good to go. You've got all your controls built in along with a color screen. It's not exactly what I would call great, but considering it's 20 years old, it's usable. It has some cool extra features too, like a controller port and AV out to connect to a TV, letting it fully replace a Genesis. Unless you're really attached to your Sega CD. The weirdest thing is the lopsided design. It slopes down, which makes everything seem slightly crooked, especially the screen. Unfortunately, being a full game console in a portable package means powering it is a pain. You either have to plug in or use 6 AA batteries, which only last a couple hours. Released 6 years after the Genesis, the Nomad wasn't very successful, but it's still unique even to this day. Next up at number 3 is an obscure one, the Apple Bandai Pippin. As Apple's first and only game console back from 1995, this was essentially a small computer running a modified version of Mac OS 7. The Pippin was a massive failure with just over 40,000 sold, and for good reason. It didn't make much sense. It's a CD-based console which only had a few games, including Super Marathon, which was actually Bungie's very first console game before they moved on to Halo. Back in the 90s, Apple was all over the place, and this might be one of the best examples. The Pippin was meant to be a gaming platform that other companies could license to make their own consoles using the basics of the Mac, such as the PowerPC processor. Bandai made this one, which came with the bizarre Applejack controller that did its best to be both a controller as well as a mouse, with a trackball and left and right click buttons around back. It was a little ahead of its time with the built-in modem, but for the most part, it was just a really weird experiment. And number 2 is the Nokia Ngage. Now this was absolutely ahead of its time, as an early smartphone that could play games back in 2003. On paper, this has a lot going for it, including the ability to run apps, online gaming, dedicated physical games, and decent controls. Try to use it as a phone though, and you'll find the speaker on top, which forces you to hold it in a very specific way. It actually does still connect to cell networks today, and even has Bluetooth, but there are tons of poor choices, like having to remove the rear shell and pull the battery just to put a game in, which is crazy. The screen is small but decent with a backlight, but the taco shape not only looks ridiculous, but seriously, you were supposed to talk into it like this. Nokia followed it up with a QD version which fixed some of these issues, but it was still a pretty major failure. If Nokia had tried something like this 5 years later, it actually may have worked out, but as it is, modern smartphones have absolutely replaced what the N-gage was trying to be. Last but absolutely not least, at number 1 is the Nintendo Virtual Boy. It doesn't get much weirder than this. The Virtual Boy was its own console that was shipped alongside the Game Boy right before the Nintendo 64 and was the first serious effort toward virtual reality. The headset has a pair of red displays that cleverly scan up and down to mimic a 3D effect. The graphics have a Super Nintendo feel, but it's not bad, and most importantly, the 3D works surprisingly well with an actual sense of depth. It lacks head tracking and is fairly heavy, so you'll need to use it on a stand, which can get pretty uncomfortable over longer periods. It has a decent controller, but it has the AC adapter built in, which makes things a little awkward. All of this put together with a fairly expensive price meant the Virtual Boy just didn't catch on. With less than 1 million units sold, it was discontinued less than a year after release. It's a shame considering that 20 years later virtual reality is just starting to hit the mainstream, but there's no doubt that the Virtual Boy was one of the weirdest consoles of all time. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to go check out my friend Kevin Kenson's video going over some of the weirdest controllers of all time. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching and I will catch you in the next one.